Live with you right here. We are on SportsGrid. It's pro football today. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi. We're now joined by NFL insider Adam Caplan. Cap, great to have you with us here on this Saturday morning. And there's a lot of buzz out there around the Chicago Bears head coach opening. Apparently they called Pittsburgh, hey, we make a trade for your coach? Looks like the answer was no. What are you hearing around Chicago right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. We'll give ESPN credit on that one because apparently, according to that story, this is interesting, and we've seen this before over the years, that they at least inquired to see if the Steelers would be willing to make a deal where the Bears could acquire, so to speak, Mike Tomlin. And it's kind of complicated how that works out, but the bottom line is, the Steelers were not considering that. By the way, that does tell you that how much they want to keep Mike Tomlin. And that's a story to watch. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson probably tomorrow or next week on PFT. But, my feeling's been the same it's been, and we'll focus on Ben Johnson. They want an offensive head coach. I get it, because if Ben Johnson didn't take the job, okay, and he can't, by the way, until after the playoffs, and if they're not willing to wait, they got to have somebody else in mind. They interviewed Mike McCarthy, who I know they have an eye on because he's developed quarterbacks. But same division. They know Ben Johnson very well. They've done their homework on him. This has been the apple of their eye. And I've known this for a while now. A lot of reporters have known this. It's not a secret. The Bears want Ben Johnson. It's not going to be easy. Ben's got a lot of interest. I'm not saying the Raiders are not an option, but they don't have a quarterback. And Caleb Williams is a quarterback who we flashed, Kevin. I know he needs a lot of work, but Ben Johnson is the quarterback whisperer and offensive whisperer. And the job that he's done with Jared Goff, we have to remember, Kevin, Jared Goff was not wanted by Sean McVay. Let's call it like it is. McVay didn't want him anymore. People thought Jared Goff was washed up. He clearly was not. And he's redeveloped a quarterback and done one of the best jobs of developing a quarterback that we've seen in a long time.
What's interesting, though, Cap, is it feels like what would sway Ben Johnson if he goes to Vegas would be Tom Brady, which is, I think, a really interesting thing to see the positive impact Tom might be already having on Vegas. If the Bears strike out on Ben Johnson, the updates we constantly get about interviews, they don't seem to be interviewing anybody else like Ben Johnson. Everybody else was a coach that won a Super Bowl 15 years ago. Yeah. Is there a plan B here?
Joe Brady, I know they just talked to. They've looked at some offensive coaches. They've done some defense. To see, the way he was explaining me with the defensive coaches is this, Kevin. If you're a defensive coach and you're interviewing with the Bears in particular, you better have a detailed plan to develop their quarterback. The number one issue with the football team is the development of Caleb Williams. And for a guy like Pete Carroll, who, by the way, I'm told was not just interested in the Bears job, he also has been looking at other jobs. You better have a detailed plan to develop that quarterback. That is the number one thing going on with that Bears team. And by the way, why does Ben Johnson like that team, and what other coaches on offense like it? Because it's not just Caleb Williams. It's Cole Kmet, who signed a contract extension. Rome Odunze, who we've talked a lot about on SportsGrid since he was drafted. And also DJ Moore's terrific. DeAndre Swift, who had a nice year for them. They're absolutely loaded on offense. Decent offensive line, not great. Still need to kind of build it. But why did I rank them number one, guys? In my rankings, which I showed you based on conversations with NFL people, it's because of the offensive talent, and they've got a quarterback.
Cap, the biggest brand in sports, particularly the Dallas Cowboys, on the hunt for a head coaching job themselves. We're taking a look at Deion Sanders picking up phone calls from Jerry Jones, but Kellen Moore, who was there for a few years in Dallas and had some success before he went out to Los Angeles and now with the Philadelphia Eagles. Give us an update here on the Dallas Cowboys coaching search.
Donnie, here's the situation with Kellen Moore. So understand something. Jerry Jones did not fire Kellen Moore. Mike McCarthy did. Mike McCarthy was told if he wanted to be the head coach, Kellen Moore was going to call the plays, and he was going to be the offensive coordinator. Mike would have input, but Kellen would be calling the plays, and they were not going to run a West Coast offense. Mike, I don't want to say to save his job, but he had seen enough over a number of years, and he decided to part ways with Kellen, and he wanted to run his West Coast offense. And Kellen, as you mentioned, went to the Chargers last year. The Chargers were beat up at wide receiver, and it just didn't look like they wanted it to look last year. He moved on to Philly, best running game in football, by a large margin. The Baltimore's number two, but the Eagles, in terms of best running back in football this year, it's Saquon Barkley. But they know him. Kellen and Jerry Jones have a good relationship, I'm told. They've known each other for a number of years. It would be a minor upset if he's not the head coach. Yes, I know about Deion. And Jerry and Deion go back 30 years, as you know, or nearly 30 years because he played for them in the mid-'90s. But the bottom line is, when you look at this situation, It's Kellen Moore, it's Dak Prescott, who work very well together. And that's the bottom line. And one thing I would say, though, this would impact Jalen Hurts. And Jalen talked about this in the spring. Jalen, going back to high school, has had almost 8 or 9 play callers. That's a lot. That's a lot of change for a quarterback. That's something to consider with Philadelphia going forward.
Cap, one coordinator that said he's going to wait until after the playoffs is Cliff Kingsbury. And if they get the victory tonight over Detroit, he's going to be a hot name as well. I mean, are the Bears entertaining Cliff Kingsbury in any capacity because of the relationship with Caleb Williams?
Yeah, coached him 1 year at USC, and he is on their list. But Ben Johnson, again, is number one. It's to be honest with you, when you talk to NFL people, Joe, everybody goes, Ben Johnson's the guy. In fact, he was the guy last year, but there was some question whether he really wanted to coach. But moving forward to here, yes, there's no question that Cliff Kingsbury is the guy to look at if this thing goes on a lot longer. By the way, you cannot, if you're coaching, you can't agree to a deal, but your coaching agent can talk to the club. They could talk about what the deal would look like in terms of years and money. And that Ben Johnson deal, guys, by the way, if and when it gets done, whether it's this year or next year, could wind up surpassing Bill Belichick, who's the highest paid coach in NFL history.
Cap, quick question for you. Has there been any conversations inside Detroit's buildings about what they will do if they do end up losing both of their coordinators, which many are expecting to happen?
Yeah, you've got Tanner Engstrad, who's their passing game coordinator, who's been with them for a number of years, young guy that's up and coming. And by the way, nobody knew who Ben Johnson was before Dan Campbell pulled him out of Miami, where they both coached. Mm-hmm. So if you look at these things, I know Mark Brunell, who I work with at ESPN, I know Mark is their quarterbacks coach, who does a great job, but Engstrad is a guy to keep an eye on. Jimmy O'Neill is their DB's coach, who knows Aaron Glenn very well. He was a defensive coordinator twice in his career. I remember he was with Chip Kelly as a defense coordinator, or they could look outside the team. But that's a great question. And let's understand that no play caller is exactly the same. It could look different. And Ben Johnson doesn't run a traditional West Coast offense. It's a very interesting offense. But again, he is the quarterback whisperer, as is Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, who will probably talk about Sam Darnold tomorrow about his future prospects.
Now, speaking of tomorrow, Cap, tomorrow we will see the Eagles and the Rams go to battle. What are we hearing around this football game, and maybe some preparations that these two teams are taking with potential snow in the forecast?
All right, Kevin, so the latest forecast, and it has changed. Thursday night, it looked like it would only be about a half an inch to an inch during the game. Unless it changes again, Kevin, in Philly, the snow will start between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m., and it should not stop until the evening. And during the game, we can get 3 to 4 inches. The heaviest part, again, this is where it is right now. We know forecasts can change. I look at hour by hour. The second half is the heaviest, between 4 and 5 p.m. Now, it just so happened because I was at that game, and I remember I looked up the Lions coaches to see who was there. So I talked to a former Lions coach who coached for them in 2013. That was the snow game. I know Donnie and I were at that game. Mm-hmm. That was the crazy game when LaShawn McCoy went off. Although it was high scoring, there were 2 returns for touchdowns. The Lions, ironically, who started that game? Matthew Stafford. The Lions, by the way, fumbled the ball 7 times. And they also had 2 returns. Jeremy Ross was their punt and kickoff returner. And who is the inactive third quarterback? None other than Kellen Moore, who will be on the other sidelines opposite Matthew Stafford. And what happened? You got the Lions guys were not prepared because that forecast was never out there. The snow came out after pregame warm-ups, and the Lions weren't prepared for it. They were prepared for cold weather and not snow, and they could not tackle because the defensive linemen, I'm told, did not have the right cleats.
Well, we'll see who has the right preparations heading into tomorrow's game. We'll talk then, Cap. Appreciate it. It's a quick break right here, and then more pro football today on the other side.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented 3rd straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then, stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Back right here on Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh, Joe Lisi, Donnie Rightside with you. We usually talk about the postseason leader markets. You can get the weekly leader markets if you'd like as well. And due to the low-scoring nature that we saw in the wild card round, you do have some oddities at the quarterback spot for leading passer. Stroud's at 282, Josh at 272, the eliminated Russell Wilson's at 270. Obviously, he's done. Jaden Daniels at 268. Then you got to go well down the list. Stafford's at 209. Lamar's at 175. Jalen Hurts is at 131. And, of course, Mahomes and Goff have not started their journeys yet. But why this market is so tricky is I think the books would, and Josh Allen's the current favorite. Josh is a dog. Slight. He's not winning this market if they don't go out there and win their game tomorrow night. Lamar, though, is not a huge favorite because he's at a 175 starting part. Hurts is even well back because he's at only 131. It's why a Goff and a Mahomes are in front of them both. If you love an upset, you'd obviously be able to get a huge ticket in 11-1, 13-1, or 17-1, Daniels, Stafford, and Stroud, respectively. I'm curious, Lisi, with the, again, trickier performances in round one and then tricky matchups here now in round two. Does anybody in that postseason passing leader market stand out?
Yeah, I look at Jalen Hurts at 10-1, and the reason why I say that is I know it's bad weather tomorrow, right? He's going to put up some yards in the passing game.
Right.
Assuming Detroit wins, they go on the road inside to a very fast track to a team that they're going to have to score 30 on, right, to win that game, right? So I believe that if they win that game, then they're in the Super Bowl. You have very, very good value with Jalen Hurts at 10-1. If we're talking dogs, the two dogs today, Stroud or Daniels, I like Stroud at 17-1. I really think they could be live today. I know Donnie thinks otherwise, but again, I think they could potentially strike the upset. The fact that we talk about the dominance of Kansas City, right? 8-0 at home. Margin of victory at home has been 5.1 points per game. You want to take the flip side of Detroit? Detroit's 7-2 at home. Their average margin of victory is 18.7 points per game.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity to steal it. And C.J. Stroud with 282, he goes and let's say he duplicates his last game, 240, 250 against KC. They win. Why not C.J. Stroud?
Hey, I mean, look, it's a big price point there. I don't think they're getting by today, so you better throw for $7 today in this game to try to keep yourself involved.
So I played a a $5 free bet on CJ at like 47-1 before the playoffs started, right? Just, again, you have all these free bets you throw. Okay, whatever. What is tough about Stroud is it's not like if you get through this week, you're home free.
Right.
Yeah.
Because not only are they going to be a massive dog next week, but whichever quarterback they play next week, unless they pull off another upset, will get the 4-game bonus in either Allen or Lamar. So Stroud is at a very difficult starting point there, Lisi. I understand what you're saying. Donnie, who I know you're a lot more comfortable with the favorites today, does that help you at all in this market?
It does, because you take a look at Patrick Mahomes at plus 380. It's not really the price point I go with, because I don't think you need necessarily a shootout this week. And also next week, let's just say it is the Baltimore Ravens. That doesn't really look shootout to me. And depending on what the weather conditions are, maybe it's more Lamar Jackson on the ground and Derrick Henry on the ground and control the game flow. So that's why I look at Jared Goff at plus 390. Doesn't have the advantage of playing last week, but for the anticipation of what we could get in this game, where you wouldn't be shocked if Jared Goff threw for 320 plus in this one. And then you say, okay, well, next week, if it is the Philadelphia Eagles on a fast track, we love the Eagles' defense. They're number one, but the number one defense doesn't play against, theoretically, let's just say the number one offense every week, because those statistics will be different. Right. And I think there's an ability where Jared Goff would have to throw for 3+ yards to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Then what do? You line up in the Super Bowl, and let's just say it is the Chiefs. You have to throw a lot. Let's just say if it's the Buffalo Bills, you're going to have to throw a lot. So I look at Jared Goff at the plus 390 price, probably the way I would go.
Yeah, it's really tricky, though, because I can't get to Goff because I think the Eagles win the conference, right? I can't get to Pat because, I don't think they're winning the conference. I don't even think they're winning today. And then, I've considered, do I grab like a, Lamar and Allen and let that go? It's all right, now I'm taking two guys, right? Because that game's such a coin flip, right? I, in this moment, know who I think I will like tomorrow. The bet's not in. And the team that I think I'll like, I didn't like a few days ago. It's just things change, right? You can take that into the receiving market if you'd like, which is led by Ladd McConkey. Obviously, he's done. You can take it into the rushing market, which is led by Derrick Henry.
I was just going to say, I think the rushing market has more value.
Well, see, now this is going to get interesting because I don't know where you're going to go.
I think James Cook at 11-1 has good value. And I know it's going up against Saquon.
You need a lot of help, though.
Yeah, but I believe the Bills will be the team to potentially win it, right? I think it'll be Buffalo and Houston. That's the way I'm basically playing it out, right? So, again, we talk about Stroud, the lottery ticket. James Cook, again, his number tomorrow is 53. Doesn't mean he can't get to 100. I mean, the way they lean on him, especially if they're, cold weather, depending upon how that game plays out. If they have a fourth-quarter lead in any capacity, they're going to run the football.
I do understand that if they beat Baltimore, he's then going to finish with more yards than Henry, almost for sure, over the course of a postseason, not in the game, right? But then you need help then to get through the Saquon number. Is there anything, Donnie, rushing or receiving for you?
I do like Derrick Henry because I think they win that football game this week with a legitimate chance to win next week and then head to the Super Bowl, get the maximum number of games. But also, if I'm going to take Derrick Henry, I'm sprinkling on 95-1 Lamar Jackson as well. Because let's just say, and you can't anticipate this, let's just say they do get to the Super Bowl. Derrick Henry gets a little banged up in that game, and he has like a 50-yard lead. I mean, that's the scenarios you're playing at 95-1 when you think Derrick Henry is going to win it. I would go Baltimore. How about that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The number I would throw out there, and I know he didn't score last week, but it's Hurts' 12-1 price for rushing touchdowns. But I might also play the Saquon 13-1 price for rushing touchdowns because the Eagles didn't have a rushing touchdown last week, which was costly. I cannot imagine that's going to stay the same. Sell me something, anybody? That's next.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? See that guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Sell me something time right here on Pro Football Today. We will, of course, ask the ever-important question of which team messes up the rushing touchdown bet in time. But just so you know, last week, every single game, both teams for a rushing touchdown was a loser, which is insane to me.
Really?
Yeah. Why? No, why? What?
I see the preview.
Well,
We're not understanding this appropriately at this
come
point.
on.
I'm glad because it wasn't in the rundown. So I wonder what Joe's going with.
I butchered it again.
And as soon as I see the preview coming up, I knew that wasn't Kevin's picture up on the screen. Yeah, exactly. There's 2 games, not 1 quarterback. Yeah.
Hang on, David Montgomery to score not 1 but 2 touchdowns tomorrow. Why does that bother you?
All right, Lisi, sell me something. Go
You
ahead.
know what?
Yeah,
you know,
come on.
I'm still look. The name of the bet is to sell me something where I like it and I have to sell it to you. Not that I have to sell it to myself.
You got to sell yourself and everybody around
I'm
you.
selling myself. All right. Washington is one of the hottest teams in the NFL. We talk about how they won 6 straight. They got the victory last week. Jaden Daniels stepped up with a 240-plus yard performance. He's going to need a dynamic effort to get the victory today. Detroit will push tempo. I think Jaden can match them. If you think he could get to 250, 275, why not match Goff's numbers? 3 1/4 guys at plus 680. If the game blows through the 55.5, he's going to have an opportunity. You don't like it.
The one bit of research I did on this play,
Go ahead.
he has 1 game where he threw
300?
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah. So if that ball was batted down, he would have had 0 games with 300 passing yards.
Okay.
Would be some good timing.
But isn't that the whole point of sell me something? Is that it's a bet that typically would not hit that we're selling
Yeah, but
to
you can't. No, but you can't love the quarterback every single week and then continuously pick this quarterback to try to sell people on. That's what we're saying.
So,
if you would have came up like
like Zach Ertz, $1.25.
Like if you would, like, you know what would have been impressive? You're like, you know what, Jaden Daniels under 125 yards passing today, 16-1. I'm like, he's on something now. Now he's trying to sell the people.
The simplest way for me
God.
is something off the beaten path.
Yeah,
is how I would say it. Now, I am not saying that number in a vacuum wouldn't qualify. You do have a bit of a formula
See,
down,
now,
though.
Anthony was right, your friend, because 3 weeks ago, something off the – you gave a minus 380 as your sell me something for Aaron Rodgers to throw
correct.
a touchdown
Way off
pass.
the beaten path.
How was that off the beaten path? It was
because
a given.
It is the
It was
only,
a given.
I don't think you know.
Throw.
I don't think you know.
Anthony, I'm talking to you.
I don't think you know what off the
no
beaten path
sarcasm.
means. No, I'm being serious. That
was chalk.
That's fun. Nobody. First of all,
nobody was going to take it.
No, nobody. One, they should have. It was an absolute winner. He threw 4 tugs. Nobody on this show gives out a minus 400. So I had to sell you that was worth betting.
I don't buy it.
Okay.
I don't
Here's
buy
the
it.
thing. It stuck with you. I can't remember which guy you gave out
I'd rather
4 weeks
you
ago
know what?
for 325.
I'll throw a cherry. I'll throw a
Bryce
cherry
Young.
on top. Vanderbilt plus the 6.5 against Tennessee. All right.
Now that's a sell me.
Now that's a sell.
Now that's a sell me.
All right, there you go.
All right, what do you got, Donnie?
All right, look, heading into this game, I'm selling myself. I love this. The people are going to love it. I'm actually selling the sports book on this one. I think they made a mistake. And it's Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Two guys that he bets
maybe I thought it was
week.
Equanimous St. Brown included in this equation here because 5 yards each quarter for each wideout at 8-1. I love this. I love this. I got to sell the sports book, Joe. Not myself, not you guys. On how did you come up with this?
Week.
I don't bet these.
No, he
week.
doesn't.
Stop it.
St. Brown is always in the portfolio.
He's in there today. Because there's only one game.
Can I just tell you the one thing about this bet? Again, 8-1. Last week, I took Mixon for 5 yards each quarter.
Yeah.
We didn't make it out of the first quarter.
Yeah. You clicked it and we would
kill it early.
Right.
Like if you're going to lose this, lose it early so you don't have to wait out the fourth quarter.
Hang on. Let the judge, Kev. Donnie, great bet. It's a great 8-1. I love it. Great bet.
Slack chat blew up. Everybody's invested.
All right.
Everybody's invested.
Here's my minus 115 sell me. Under 95.5 total touchdown yardage in Lions Commanders. I think there could be 6, 7, 8 touchdowns, and this still go under the number. I don't think we see the 50, 60-yard touchdowns within this game. I think these are long drives, converting on third down, and touchdowns with inside the 10-yard line.
No chunk plays is what you...
Pass interferences at the goal line, kept cheering wildly.
Yeah. Going crazy.
I'll root it in for you. It's not something I would take, but...
that doesn't sound like you're going to root it, though.
No,
it doesn't.
Not rooting it in even a little bit. We'll be right back here on...
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Back right here on Pro Football Today. We're going to dive into some more of the specifics around our games today. But I think it would be wrong if I didn't ask. Each team to score one rushing touchdown in our 4 games this weekend. 47-1.
Wow.
Any bite?
Yeah.
Any interest?
I think the one that you're...
Who holds you back?
Houston. Because of Mixon being banged up, are we going to get Pierce to get us?
Wally?
It's possible. I mean, I think Houston's going to try and throw it, but that doesn't mean that Stroud can't get one in.
That's good. Got Kev off the beat. Got him off the track right there. All right.
Look at him. You broke him.
The best part is, though, Wally hits Joe right in the brain, and he has to stop for a second and think about how that might be a really good play right there. That was the good part. Like, you can see you thinking, like, live in action. Wonderful stuff.
No, I was thinking I don't even want to say his name. That's what I was thinking.
I can't wait for that ticket to come in late. Hey, do me a favor. We almost got this rooted in, and it's 8 parlays all tied to the Wally touchdown. Donnie, who blows you up on a rushing score?
It's probably, I would probably say it would be Houston, but the second time probably Washington. I'm a little bit leery of them just on the game.
Oh, you cut it out. They're going to score a rushing touchdown.
I mean, look, if they score multiple rushing touchdowns, I'm going to lose
eats
my mind.
Today.
Yeah, like Amon-Ra St. Brown's throwing touchdown instead of catching, I'm going to lose it.
All right, there we go. Each team for a passing touchdown quickly, plus 240.
I like that.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
Who holds you out
Is
there?
that all weekend or just today?
That's all weekend.
All weekend.
All right, let's talk. Man, he did catch me. Let's talk Chiefs-Texans here. Let's update. Are we seeing a few 9s pop around here now, Donnie?
Yeah, Bet365 just went to 9. Westgate out in Las Vegas goes to 9. Still 8.5s, but those 8.5s now also at DraftKings turning into a little bit of juice at minus 115 price. The totals still 41.5, so we haven't gotten any movement there. By the way, cold conditions in Kansas City, not something they're not used to. No precipitation in the forecast, but there are some slightly windy conditions out there, though.
No.
Where are you at on the total of that game? I know you're not really playing it, but I haven't heard really what you would think around that number.
If you said, you know what, you got to play it, it would be the under because we know game script for Kansas City. If it's clear they're playing good defense, and I expect them to do that, and the Texans aren't scoring left and right, Kansas City will engage that offensive game plan. Not say, hey, you know what, let's stretch this to 24-3. They'll be like, we got a touchdown lead. We don't need to go press it.
Yeah, I slightly lean over, but unsurprising to anyone, would much rather play a Texans team total through its number than the actual full game ticket. Let's talk about the full game. Any of the options here, Lisi, 4:30, Chiefs-Texans. Where are you looking to bet this game?
Well, I am on the total. I like the total a lot. I did alt it very high into the high 40s, so I see this game, a little bit different than the both of you. I do believe C.J. Stroud and that offense push tempo. I'm on Nico Collins over the 82.5. But the one receiver that I keyed from the Houston perspective was Dalton Schultz because of the inability over the course of the regular season for Kansas City to just leave tight ends open, whether that be Stover or Schultz. Now, Stover got a majority of the looks in the second half of that matchup against L.A. I think it's different now with the veteran. I do think Schultz eats 50+. But I'll go back to the bet I made last week. I almost had Nico Collins in the door for 2 touchdowns. That was 11-1. I think he gets paid there today at plus 185. 2-1 today is 15-1. Pretty good value. I know it's the Chiefs, but they're going to need a monumental effort out of Nico to win this game, and I think he could do it.
Yeah, part of my best bet is going to come from the Chiefs. We'll have that a little bit later. But I did take like some of the boosted parlays out there. You wait for the 20% to 30%. Yeah. Some books offering 50% today, so I felt I had to jump in. So a simple one for me, betting-wise, is the Chiefs to win the game, Hopkins to get 20 or more receiving yards, and Mechie to get 20 or plus more receiving yards. Just looking at those low-end options. But my gameplay for this, I do think Kansas City is better, and I legitimately think there's a chance Kansas City can win this game going away, which means covering the spread and winning by double digits. My thought process is C.J. Stroud is a really good quarterback. He is. I just don't know if he has enough weapons to keep up with Kansas City if they are engaged in this game, which, again, I'm leaning more towards the under 41.5. But somebody outside of Nico Collins must step up. And I agree with Joe. He's going for a tight end. I always say this. If you're getting a good pass rush home, which Kansas City does have, who's your best friend out there? It's the running back out of the backfield, or it's going to be the tight end over the middle. Mechie last week had 8 targets in the first half, none in the second. So I do think he's going to have to step up because, as we remember, the last time these two teams played, we weren't looking at Nico Collins saying, you know what, we need 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tank Dell was tremendous, and Tank Dell might have been the leader in that game had he not gotten hurt. Somebody's going to have to play that second bell. I think Mechie can step up. Not to say he was going to play as well as Tank Dell played in the last game, but for my money, he's got to get to at least 50 yards to keep that team honest if they're going to stick around, Kevin.
Yeah, the problem I wasn't able to get into a lot was the Dalton Schultz number, but I do think his 40-plus, minus 104, is a really good play. There are injuries this week for Houston that go beyond Joe Mixon. No Kate Stover, no Robert Woods. That should up the ante a little bit there for Dalton Schultz, I think, within this game. And we've seen KC struggled against the tight end position somewhat this season. I also mentioned the over 2.5 turnovers play. I think both quarterbacks could potentially be picked off multiple times, right? If a fumble goes our way, fantastic. We're going to really be then in a really good position to cash that at minus 105. I think the interceptions will be live in this game. Stroud has been shaky protecting the football against playoff teams, and Mahomes is going up against the secondary that has been great at intercepting quarterbacks, and I think might be even more willing to. I think they'll be gambling more in this football game, probably, knowing that the turnover battle is going to be so important if they are going to be able to pull off this massive upset. And I think Houston can pull off this upset. You know, one of the things within Kansas City that I didn't talk a ton about earlier was just listen, they have won all but one game with Pat Mahomes under center this season. And only one time did they beat a playoff team by this margin. I believe it was only 4 games all year that they won by 9 or more. Considering they won almost every single game that they played, that is a bit stunning. But it speaks to who they are. And that is, to me, why I have found this number so stunning. Is those who believe in Kansas City, those who believe that the Chiefs have found themselves in this position by choice, more so than circumstance or ability. Why today they will flip that is beyond me. Because if they look at Houston today the way they've looked at Carolina, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders, well, realistically, this game is in the bag. And next week, they play for the chance to go to the Super Bowl again. That's the game. So even if I'm wrong about Houston's ability to make this a sweat for Chiefs fans and backers, the Chiefs aren't interested in winning this game by 10, 14, 21 points.
No, that's a good point. I want to bring this up, too, because I've heard a lot of this in terms of last week's games and the perception, and I want to get your take on it, too. The perception was that last week, L.A. sort of handed Houston the game because of how Herbert played, and I understand Herbert did have to account, for 4 interceptions, and he didn't play well by any capacity. But they were clearly outplayed and beat up in the trenches in the second half by that front seven led by Will Anderson. We're not giving Houston enough credit for taking that game to L.A. And everybody's, it was Harbaugh. It's Herbert again in the playoffs. They handed Houston that game, and I see it different. I see that Houston won that game in the trenches in the second half, Donnie.
Yeah, and also in the trenches, talking about that too, Shaq Mason's supposed to be back the starting guard for the Texans. That'll be a big boost for them. Also understand this, a little bit of musical chairs at the tackle position for the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Thuney's going to actually stay at left tackle. He's played miraculously well that last week starting there that they played, so that's one to keep an eye on because you're right about it. They have no chance unless they get home from those 2 defensive ends for Houston.
Just the Houston defense, right? They gave up an opening drive field goal. There was a fumble out of their controls. They gave up 3. The only other time the Chargers scored, the broken Ladd McConkey play. It gives you an idea. We'll go to game number 2 next.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Lions Commanders. Detroit Lions are a 15-2 football team who have absolutely everything in front of them. 2 home victories away from going to a Super Bowl. A game they nearly played in last year. A game I know they wanted to play in because across from them was Kansas City. They beat last year in week number 1. This is a Lions team who is building to this moment. And I think for a lot of people, the idea is the longer this goes, the healthier the Lions will be, the more dangerous the Lions will be. I'll just say be careful with that thought because it seems like they're just going to keep losing people along the way. Doc's told us many times he thinks the Hutchinson stuff is beyond wishful thinking. They lose Zeitler, one of their star guards, in that victory over Minnesota. And it's one of the reasons I look at this game for Detroit. And, yeah, so I think Houston wins. I probably think Detroit wins. I think they could lose the game. But I would be very surprised if Detroit ran Washington off the field. Detroit doesn't really run good teams off the field. You put a bad team in front of them, oh, boy. I mean, Goff will go out there and look like a league MVP against the Jaguars and the Titans. But going up against the Bucs, the Bills, the Vikings, we saw turnovers. The Packers, we saw interceptions. We saw vulnerability there. I think Washington hangs within this football game. And even on the off chance that this thing is, a 15-point lead with 2.5 minutes to go, if I have the football, the back door is wide open with Daniels at quarterback.
Yeah, we see it the same way as the spread. I like Washington plus the 9.5. It just comes down to me. They're a young group. They're 1-6 straight. They've overexceeded expectations, and they're playing with house money. They can roll the dice. Granted, it's going to be very difficult to win back-to-back road games. But, again, if anybody could do it, I believe it's Jaden Daniels. I think he can move the football. I do feel they have playmakers to create mismatches. I think Zach Ertz could be utilized today. And, again, it depends on how Aaron Glenn, Donnie, wants to attack Jaden Daniels. Are they going to play zone and force him to methodically work down the field, or are they going to roll the dice and say we play man, we blitz, and we'll get to him when we get to him? Because if they play that way, then we're looking at a potentially 70-point game, and last team that has the football wins it. And that would be, I think, the worst for Detroit in terms of this matchup. But I'll take the points with Washington. I think they could score. I think Brian Robinson is a look in terms of anytime touchdown. But I just altered Jaden Daniels to 250 and 275 plus at plus money, and I think the game goes over.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, been around the block. I mean, if you're asking one defensive coordinator, hey, a couple of them around the league that you would trust in this situation, wouldn't it be Dan Quinn trying to devise a game plan that's going to work in your favor? And also, as Kevin pointed out, maybe the way to do it is you can't slow the game down. It's not going to happen. But you can dictate on an offensive side where, hey, maybe we take 11 plays and 68 yards and score a touchdown and burn 6.5 minutes on the clock and really flip it back over to Detroit. But I do think Detroit's offense is really a mismatch against that defense overall. And as long as we get a solid performance out of Jared Goff, you got two capable running backs, good offensive line, wide receivers out the wazoo, and a legitimate tight end. That's going to put a lot of pressure on that Washington defense that we've seen in the past you can get yardage off of. Even though it's a 9.5-point line, this game still feels to me like it has the chance to get ugly, which means Detroit could run away. The reason I say that is, and I understand it's a rookie quarterback on the road, already told you won a playoff game last week, has started 17 games, fantastic. But if we are being optimistic here, that place has the chance to avalanche early with how much noise and excitement it's going to be. So if you are looking to bet Washington, let's just say you want to sit it out. See if they can weather that first quarter storm where everything starts to settle down and you get into your game plan. That's where they'll have it. But to me, if you can do that, they can hang around. But I can actually see this game 14-0, 14-3, let's just say, by the end of the first quarter, because that excitement from that arena could boost Detroit.
Yeah, it could be, and that would be great for the total, 55.5. Again,
Just start chucking it.
Yeah.
I think one of the worries for me on that total, though, Lisi, is you do have two teams that can be super explosive and super efficient. It's how easily something can go wrong and how much you have two teams that fit that description in an odd way. In that, I think both teams will be very patient on offense. Like, if we were sitting up here doing the game together, you'd be like, get to the line. Like, what are we doing? Like, the way that they completely controlled the football, Washington against Tampa Bay, was not by mistake. The fact that Baker was 15 of 18, 10 yards of completion, under 200 yards, not by mistake. Washington knows their defense is a worry point, and they know that they're best off not allowing it to be on the field. And I still think Detroit knows that their defense is a bit of a worry point, and they know that they're best off not allowing it down the field. So I think you could have, and maybe I'm buying into too much what we saw last, but you had a game last week where Washington did not punt, and you got 43 points, and it was a bang under. So it's tough.
It is tough. But you know what changes that? If, let's say, Detroit wins the coin toss, they defer.
Yeah.
They give the ball to Jaden Daniels. All of a sudden, hey, they start fast, because if you're Kingsbury, you want to get your quarterback involved into a rhythm. You're not going to take 8 to 10 minutes, right? First drive. They score and have success on their first drive. That would really all of a sudden open things up, right? Now, all of a sudden, Washington is playing with a lead. Does Detroit match? They maybe, let's say, go 3 and out, or, 6 plays, don't get points, and now all of a sudden Washington has the football. In that type of situation, you're going to slow it down? Or you all of a sudden, hey, we got the lead, our guys in rhythm, are we going to go pedal to the metal? And I think that's how the game and the chess match will play out. It is intriguing. Styles make fights. You need somebody to push, to go toe-to-toe with. I think Daniels is that guy, but again, we'll see.
He's got to be Superman tonight, and maybe he can be there, because you are looking at possibly, if you had to put a number on his carries in order for them to win, wouldn't it be like 15, which sounds crazy for a quarterback? But they're going to be bringing so much heat, because the one thing we know about Detroit is they don't care what the game style is. They want to dictate it. And if they go, well, it's not best to play man-to-man or blitz, you know what they're going to do? Play man-to-man and blitz, because that's grit football, and that's what we do. We'll see how it plays out.
I will just say it's never going to pop.
Yes.
They were all out there last. Despite thinking this game could go under, I just want to bet both teams to score a rushing touchdown, and they're never going to post it, and I don't know why. Let's do best bets, touchdown scores, and some final breakdowns next right here.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Best bet time here on SportsGrid's Pro Football today. Joe Lisi, Donnie Rightside, Kevin Walsh. We have 2 games today. How about that?
Yeah.
And we have 2 tomorrow. Quickly, excitement level for Sunday. We're feeling some juice around those games.
Yes, excited, very much so. But I'm more excited for today. You're Eagle fans. That's why.
You're more excited than more. And by the way, there are betting rules and etiquette tomorrow that you must abide by.
Etiquette?
Yep, just get ready for that.
I don't know what
he's
talking.
fine. Leave him be.
All right.
You tomorrow, I think, already have way more action in relative, like.
I'm not a big fan of the early game, even though I do have wagers in. Love tonight's game, but tomorrow I think there's more avenues to pursue, depending on weather conditions and stuff. But I got to tell you, I think as fans, that second game tomorrow is just phenomenal. It's going to be so much fun to watch.
The talking points will be plentiful. It's 2 teams whose seasons would feel underwhelming if they didn't make the Super Bowl. One of them's not making it out of the divisional round, and I think that's a big part of that football game. Let's do some best bets. We'll be able to kind of give thoughts on every single one of these games. But, Joe, we always go to you first. Your best bet here on the Saturday's divisional round slate.
I was on the over for Houston last week. We crept over it. I'm on the over today, and I actually think this game could be potentially the highest scoring game of the weekend. I do believe C.J. Stroud and that offense can break out. Nico Collins scored a touchdown last week. I think he could hit pay dirt again. And the fact that Stroud attacked that defense over the top the last time they played in terms of Week 16, I think they break out. It wouldn't shock me if they get over their team total today, and this game trends as high as potentially 49.5, 50-plus, guys.
Yeah, your best friend in that game is going to be Houston scoring first and keeping the lead for as long as they can. The last thing you want is that Kansas City MO. We're up 7-3. My goodness, it feels like we're up 28-3, and let's go on cruise control. You need a Houston to be aggressive early. And by the way, that's their pathway to victory, not slowing the game down.
For me, this total, while I think it can get there, I lean that way. I prefer a side. I'll explain more, but I don't want to go out of order, so go for it, DRS, your best bet.
Biggest advantage of the season comes this week with the best football teams. You play all year long to get the number 1 seed because now not only 2 buys are out there, there's only 1, which means you're the number 1 seed, you're the best team, and you're the most rested team. It's going to happen twice today on a Saturday. We don't have to wait till Sunday between the number 1 teams coming out. Also keep in mind, you are rested, you are ready, and the MO for these 2 football teams, specifically the Chiefs, is Just win, baby, with Andy Reid off a bye, and that's what I'm asking for. The same thing with Detroit. I think they're a better football team than Washington. I'm just really asking them to win. And also keep in mind, haven't taken a teaser this entire season. I'm not really a teaser backer, but the odds made more sense to me. Minus 120, which I got at DraftKings here, minus 2.5 and minus 2.5, as opposed to paying more for some of those outlets at 9.5, at 3.5. I'm just looking, guys, for these two football teams to win the football game, and I'm willing to bet they will.
For me, I really respect the bet because that's a numbers play.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes it's like, listen, just it is going to be what it's going to be. But we've talked before the show. The fact that you were able to get
correct
2.5 and 2.5, right?
Correct.
I don't love the bet. I ain't making that bet.
Sure.
I'd be teasing the other sides, specifically the Houston Texans. I have no doubt in my mind they cover this game. The question is whether or not they win this game. And I will tell you this, because I am a little superstitious. I'm not alone in that.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time I put a best bet as a side this NFL season, it has lost. Every single time. And I had a good year on NFL side.
Really?
And I thought, don't do this. And I said, no, we're going to burst through. Like that barren tree that time. We're going to break through. This is the simplest spread math you've ever had to do. Week 16, it was 3.5. They added 5 points. For what? Is Tank Dell worth 5 points? Is a bye worth 5 points? Is the fact that Houston looked awesome in the second half last week worth anything to anyone? Apparently not. The Texans defensively can more than hang in this game. They have the better defense. So is Kansas City going to all of a sudden turn it on for 30? No, obviously. The opponent says no. Everything they've done this year says no. The Texans cover pillar to post. They pull off the upset and send the Chiefs home in the divisional round. Touchdown scores.
I love it. And if they're going to win that game outright, Nico's Collins at plus 185 has a huge performance today. I took him for 1 touchdown, but I'm on him for 2 at 15-1.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, do your shopping anywhere between minus 120 to minus 140 out here. It won't matter because we say juice doesn't lose as long as you win that bet. Amon-Ra St. Brown, touchdown tonight in Motown.
And probably Donnie's least favorite bet given out on the show, Brian Robinson for a touchdown. Getting a starting back, still the goal line back at that price, I think is cannot miss there. It is going to be a great day of football, and we're back tomorrow to break it down, and then break down 2 more on this Sunday. Lisi, Rightside, and Walsh. We'll see you then. Good luck.
The defending champion.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.